So what about a character that isn't very social, might not be able to put the square peg in the square hole, can't talk to the guys backstage, but the minute he gets in the ring and the bell rings, he's flawless. I pitched it to the writers, and one of them goes, oh, Vince would never do anything like that. Vince goes, I gotta get back to character-based wrestling. And I just pitched the character, and he's mulling it over in his head, the Rain Man of wrestling. And then all this talent comes in, guys like Batista, Brock Lesnar, Cena, Orton, Victoria, Shelton Benjamin, and they were physically world-class athletes. And we were just dudes from Southern Indiana. I don't know, I didn't do anything to get fired. They told me I was not up to WWE standards.
Wait, slow down. What do you mean? What does that mean?
That's all they said. So it was kind of like creative's got nothing for you. Comes in, Vince goes, Steve, you ever seen this guy wrestle? And Austin looks at me. You know how Austin does like that downward look, right? Austin looks at me and goes, no, I don't think I have. And I said, well, Nightmare Danny Davis trained me. And then Austin goes, well, he's probably one of the best. And then Vince goes, great, we'll start on Monday. And Evolution came down. The next week, Jericho told me that was the highest rated segment they had in the past 2 years. I'm not saying it was all due to me, but it was all due to me.
Do not attempt to walk straight or adjust your gait. This is LiMPiN Ain't Easy. It's wrestling as real as it gets. I am your handy-captivating host. My name is Timmy Baltimore. I want to thank you for joining us. Hop on that short bus. Don't forget to click like and subscribe to the YouTube channel and podcast. Now let's get to the show. All right, welcome to LiMPiN Ain't Easy. My name is Timmy Baltimore, and I am joined by a man I've looked up to for a long time, and has been in my wrestling orbit, and has certainly, taught some of your favorite wrestlers how to wrestle, and is best known for his run on the WWE as the lovable character of Eugene. If you're outside of that bubble, you don't know that maybe he's quite possibly one of the best wrestling workers breathing oxygen, and has been for a long time. His name is Nick Dinsmore. Nick, thank you so much for coming on.
Timmy Baltimore, is that you? It's Eugene. It's Eugene Nick Dinsmore.
Oh, it's Eugene. Hi, Eugene. I got your special parking sign behind me.
I see
looks
the
like
graphics
mine
back there. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no problem, brother. No problem. We've known each other for quite some time, and we came from OVW. You had been there a long time before me, Nick, and I was really fortunate. There was a period, and I sometimes like to just tell a personal story with the guest, where I was trying out for the ECW backstage interviewing situation, and I had to have certain talent come back and interview, and you were right at the front, and you were so helpful to me in that effort of trying to get me picked up. And I know, it was a good reflection on OVW. It was a good reflection of Danny Davis, but I wanted to thank you for that. And that's just one of many things you've done for a lot of people. How do you, when you look back now, where are you? Pinellas and St. Pete area?
Yeah, down in Florida, man. Hanging and banging on the beach, brother.
I miss it. I was there for about 10 years. So when you look back now, how does it feel to know that the leadership role you've had for so long has certainly, helped so many people in achieving their dreams and goals?
Well, I appreciate all your kind words, man. I don't know how to feel about it. I mean, I've always been a humble guy, so I don't want to go out and toot my own horn, but I wanted people that were good to succeed. I wanted people that I liked that were good to succeed. I wanted people, if you come from OVW and I like you and you're good, then the cream will rise to the top. And it's, the guys that really enjoyed the business and wanted to learn, irregardless if they made it to the main event of WrestleMania or never had a match, I wanted to help them equally.
Yeah. The first time I met you, Nick, was in passing at the Russ Haas Memorial Show for Donnie B. And I was just starting out, didn't know anything. And at that point back then, there was a buzz about these OVW guys, and it was kind of before the really OVW had really taken that foothold. But the buzz was there's these guys, Amaja and Conway, and there's this guy who is nicknamed Mr. Wrestling, and he can go, and his name is Nick Dinsmore. Do you remember that period of time starting out, what the process was that got you integrated into the WWE system, and sort of some of the early hills and obstacles you had to climb?
So I graduated high school in 1994. I signed up with the Danny Davis School of Professional Wrestling in 96 and had my first match in September. That became Ohio Valley Wrestling. I signed up, Conway signed up, Rob Conway signed up, the Damager, Danny Basham signed up. Doug Basham had been there before me, but he had gone on to work at Ford for a while, but he ends up coming back. So from 96 until late 98, early 99, we were just guys on an indie show in Southern Indiana, touring Kentucky and Indiana and having a good time. And Rip Rogers was wrestling with us, so he was not necessarily yet an in-ring coach, a training coach, but he was on the shows, and I got to wrestle him every weekend. And then at some point, I believe it was 99, maybe summer, that's when Cornette comes aboard. And that's when Ohio Valley Wrestling partnered with WWE to train their developmental talent. And because Conway, myself, Danny Basham, Doug Basham, we all had enough experience. We weren't necessarily the trainers, but we were kind of like player coaches working with all these developmental guys. So, I mean, if you talk about obstacles, on one hand, we were guys working in an indie company, and then all this talent comes in. Guys like Batista, Brock Lesnar, Cena, Orton, Victoria, Shelton Benjamin, and they were physically world-class athletes. And we were just dudes from Southern Indiana. I mean, Conway and I had decent physiques. He had much better physique than me. We were moderately athletic, and then these guys were world-class athletes. So we go from, on one hand, just hanging out in an indie company to all of a sudden now there's a WWE carrot in front of us, which is great. But then if you look at the guys that they're bringing in, like, wow, I have to be as good or better than this. So that was kind of difficult, but I don't know. It was, I don't know that I looked at it that way then, but looking back now, I can kind of, I feel like I see that.
I didn't even think about how, like, that's a really unique perspective, because you guys are the homegrown guys there. And then all of a sudden, was there a feeling of us and them ever, or did it gel pretty quickly?
So for the entire Danny Davis School of Professional Wrestling locker room, and the developmental came in, the guys that were on the top of the Danny Davis School, like myself, Conway, the originals is what they call us, Doug Basham, Danny Basham, I don't feel like there was us against them, but it very quickly came that the developmental guys started getting booked on the TV, and the lower card training guys ended up not. And I could see some of them getting, frustrated or disappointed because they've been wrestling, pursuing their dream, having fun at OVW, and then all of a sudden they're, not on the shows, and a whole new crew has come in, and it's doubtful that they will be. I mean, some of them got integrated, but there was just a handful of us that really ended up getting signed, because that was the next thing. First, the development in, but we're still wrestling for free. Some of us are still paying Danny money. And in December of 99 is when I got signed to a developmental contract. The first two were me and Flash Flanagan. And then it was kind of weird because I didn't tell anybody else. Flash didn't tell anybody else.
Really?
Because we didn't want there to be any heat between like Conway, Damage, and Doug Basham. Yeah, we were getting paid $300 a week.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Some of the developmental guys are making $1,600, $2,000 a week. We're getting paid $300 a week. And I'm like, it's just I never thought I would make it to WWE. I just felt like I was becoming a part of the OVW school that was going to train the WWE guys.
The period in time when you start to garner this reputation of being, Mr. Wrestling, like the guy who seems to have the best grasp on the craft at the time. At least that was the reputation. That was the chatter. That was the talk. Did you,
The legend.
the legend, and don't let the truth get in the way of a good legend, right? That time period, what, if anything, were you hearing about going up to the big dance, and what were some of the feedback, good and bad, that you were receiving?
I think Kevin Kelly called me one time because I used to, I think it was when I was a heel, tried to be heel. I would pose and then I would lick my bicep, and he said, "Oh, don't do that." And I felt like that was the only direction I got. Again, I didn't think I'd ever make it. I didn't think I was on the list of guys to make it. I felt like I was a in-ring player, coach, training dummy for these guys to learn how to work so they could go up and then make money for WWE.
That was it. They don't lick your bicep was the only
Yeah.
advice. Okay, so there comes a point where the stars start to come, and there was a saying of developmental hell. I don't know how you felt about it because it was home to you.
Yeah.
But when did you start, if ever, to feel that kind of pressure of, okay, like, I've been here. When gonna be my time?
So I first started when OVW was based in Jeffersonville. That's where the developmental system started. We moved to the Louisville location, which is still a location OVW uses now. And that first group of guys, like we talked about, Cena, Brock, Batista, Orton, were such great athletes that were going to be superstars that the next kind of groups that started coming in maybe not have been as caliber of an athlete, not bad, but then became a little bit more realistic. Well, you know what I mean? If they're going to sign this guy, I mean, I know I'm better than him in the ring, but I'm not that far behind as an athlete or an actor or a performer. And it just kept getting closer. And at the same time, I kept getting better. And at the same time, Cornette writing the TV was the one that was crafting that legend of Nick Dinsmore. But
Yeah.
I mean, the thing was, Cornette was telling the story because I was that good in the ring, but he made it sound so good and easily understandable, and people could remember it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Was that, and this may be a tough question, but I feel like every uh group class of OVW thinks theirs was the best. And that's beautiful. I think that's awesome. That just means that the place is fantastic. I wouldn't be the person I am today. I would have never gotten out of Baltimore were it not for 4400 Shepherdsville Road, and Danny Davis and Rip and you um and Al but when you look back, was the your favorite era of booking, was it under Cornette?
I mean, we're talking OVW. Yeah, yeah, of course. But
OVW, yes.
yeah. I mean, I mean, because he from 90 summer of 99 until I got called up on TV in 04. I mean, he wrote all the TV, and he wrote me as the top guy. I mean, I was the hometown hero, top babyface, top heel, in the top angle. You know what I mean? It's was sleeping in my own bed every night. Every house show, the house shows were less than two hours away. You know what I mean? It was like it's a dream come true. I'm training 4 days a week, getting paid by WWE because as that time progressed, I would get raises. So
Yeah.
you're in a developmental contract, then you get put on a booking contract, which then apparently what I was told, the writers then see the list of booking talent and they're supposed to write for the booking talent. Because at that time there was kind of a disconnect between the writers knowing who the developmental guys are and what their strengths are and being able to write them in, but
Right.
once you get on the booking sheet and you get paid a little bit more and then you get paid a little bit more. So I'm making, 600 then 1,000 a week, sleeping in my own bed, doing OVW TV, top babyface. You know what I mean? I mean, it was all, dream come true.
Well, I mean, when did you start to feel the hunger for more, or the pressure of, hey, we're paying you this much, we need you to we need to come up with something?
I don't think them paying me $1,000 a week would have put pressure on them to get that return back. You know what I mean?
Okay.
They're paying
Yeah.
some of the developmental guys 3,000, 4,000 a week.
Sure.
But when Con- when Conway gets called up, when the Bashams get called up,
Ah.
now all the developmental guys that either started with me in OVW or came at the beginning, and we all kind of grew up together. Now all of a sudden they're all on TV and gone, and there's a new group coming in. So all of a sudden this new group, and I loved all of them, but they looked at me as more as the office than being a friend.
Okay.
You
So
know, and
like
it
the
wasn't a bad thing.
Jeter,
It
the
was just,
young guys, the Jeters and all that's you kind of took an elder
well,
statesman role.
I had a special connection with Jeter and
Okay.
Cage and Mark Magnus, Muhammad Hassan, because I started them in the other building and trained them. But when, like, Carlito or
Hmm.
Capitelli and Johnny Nitro come in, they're all great, but all of a sudden it was more of a teacher student or office talent relationship. It wasn't friend peer, which wasn't a bad thing. But then I started thinking, I saw a lot of guys complain about being in Louisville and then get called up. And I tell guys this all the time: the squeaky wheel gets the oil. I told Doug Basham one day, I said, I think I'm going to quit and try to go to Japan. Now, this would have been 2002, 2003. I mean, we had the internet, but I had no idea how to get a hold of anybody in Japan. I didn't know anybody in Japan. I don't even think I met a Japanese wrestler at that point. So it was kind of just to see what happened. So Doug tells apparently Dean Malenko, Dean tells Johnny Ace. Next thing I know, it was February of '04. I'm in a meeting with Vince McMahon. Stephanie McMahon in the office. Now, I told you that story. I have to rewind. Rip Rogers was a trainer of OVW, and we have class every day at 8 a.m., and Rip would kind of give ideas of characters that we could pitch to the riding squad. And the idea that he gave me was, Rip's son has autism.
Hmm.
And he said, what about a character that isn't very social, might not be able to put the square peg in the square hole, can't talk to the guys backstage, but the minute he gets in the ring and the bell rings, he's flawless, uh, um, because he's seen it on TV and he's grown up been a wrestling fan his whole life. So I kicked that around in my head for a while. And when the agents would come down, guys like Arn Anderson, Dean Malenko, I said, I described that character. And I remember it was Arn that goes, we're more reality based now. We don't do gimmicky stuff like that anymore. Okay. So a couple more months went by. The writers came down to OVW. And I only remember the writers coming down like once or twice. I
Yeah.
pitched it to the writers, and one of them goes, oh, Vince would never do anything like that. Okay. Fast forward to February of '04 in the meeting with Vince McMahon and Stephanie. And I feel like this was my shit or get off the pot time.
Hmm.
It was either, we've had this guy under contract, we're going to have to do something with him, or we're going to have to figure something else out. And Vince goes, I want to get back to character-based wrestling. And I just pitched the character, and he's mulling it over in his head, the Rain Man of Wrestling. He didn't actually say the Rain Man of Wrestling. I don't even know if he knew what the movie was, but it sounds better in the story. At that point, Stone Cold Steve Austin walks in. Now, Austin wasn't on TV, but he came back for a Saturday Night's Main Event that they taped, I think because he had a movie coming out. Comes in, Vince goes, Steve, you ever seen this guy wrestle? And Austin looks at me. You know how Austin does like that downward look, right? Austin looks at me, goes, no, I don't think I have. And I said, well, Nightmare Danny Davis trained me because I knew that Austin and Danny had become good friends in Dallas. And then Austin goes, well, he's probably one of the best. And then Vince goes, great, we'll start on Monday. We didn't actually start the next Monday, but that was the Austin's vote of confidence for Vince to give me the nod. And Austin didn't even know me.
Hmm. And that got the ball rolling right there.
Mhm.
Isn't it crazy that I always find that it just mystifying in this industry that a guy can plug away for years and years and years, and then it's always like this straw that breaks the camel's back, and then things happen so quickly. Uh, did you feel the character, um, which you portrayed brilliantly? Did you feel any kickback on that from any of your peers at the time?
Peers, no, absolutely not. And when I started the character, the only pushback that the character got was, I think, from some media outlets saying, what is WWE doing now? Not me, not necessarily the character. What is WWE doing now? And for the first couple of weeks when Eugene was on TV, I was just getting the character out there. But when I had my first match and they saw Eugene win, that quieted everybody because I think everybody figured out this was an underdog story of someone who's trying to achieve their dreams and doing something that everybody says is impossible.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, it's myself being physically disabled. If you want to do something and you set your mind to it, man, you can figure it out and push through. And despite the fact that you didn't have those disabilities or whatever, you were representing their story, the lightheartedness, and obviously the sympathy factor, but also the way you'd show fire and them just waiting for Eugene to have just, he's had enough. Like, when's this guy gonna have enough? It was a thing of beauty. At what point do you remember feeling like, oh man, they're really gonna run with this and in a big way?
I mean, maybe because once I started, it just became a train that was just going. All of a sudden, we're on the road 5 days a week, TV. You know, you're flying home twice a week, flying there and back, and it just became a rocket. But when I first started, I think they wanted the character. They didn't want. I didn't think that they. Oh, let me say it this way. I didn't think they thought I would get the character over, or the character would get as over as it did. I figured it was like, okay, let's give him his chance. Let's put him out there, and if he fails, he fails. But it was because the writer Brian Gerwitz, what's his name? Gerwitz, I think.
Gerwitz. Yeah, no, I've always had trouble with that one.
I mean, he's an awesome guy. He's got a book he put out recently, but he was the one that could write for Eugene. He wrote a lot of the rock stuff, not all of it. And he was a writer that could write for the character Eugene. And I tell guys all the time, you could have a great character in your head, but if a writer cannot write for it, you're not gonna make it on TV. But he was the one that started crafting it. He made Eugene Bischoff's nephew, which I think was kind of at first kind of a knock on Bischoff, like the special kid's gonna be Bischoff's nephew. But then Regal was coming back from injury, and they paired me with Regal, which made a perfect odd coupling. So all of a sudden they're putting me in with these two guys. So I'm not just a new guy. I'm in with other. I'm getting the rug from these guys. And then because Regal's so awesome, he could make the pairing between he and I just magical, which it was. And it just kind of took a life of its own. But when I started seeing the signs, Eugene won his first match. Eugene for president. Go overseas. Eugene for prime minister. I mean, it was 90% Eugene. I'm like, oh, okay, this is getting over. Then when they got me on 2 segments, 3 segments, 6 segments on Raw.
You're the thread throughout the show.
Yeah. When Eugene and when I was on Jericho's highlight reel and Evolution came down, the next week Jericho told me that was the highest rated segment they had in the past 2 years.
Wow.
I'm not saying it was all due to me, but it was all due to me.
Right. It was all due. Yeah, he had a big part of it, and that was post boom period, you know, and to just guys remember that was it, business wasn't bad by any means, but it was like, okay, we're not those 7.0s aren't in anymore, so a spike in the rating that was a big deal, and that would get the attention of the boss, right? To go.
I would assume so, because I mean, if those advertisers are paying more for higher, I don't know how it works. If the advertisers pay more for higher ratings, but that's it. I mean, you want to put your what the people are reacting to is basically what I think you saw.
Well, the big business started when you got in there with Hunter, and I mean, Regal is for that promo he cut in your defense. I mean, that's credited as his greatest piece of oration ever, and one of the better promos in the history of WWE Raw, like the modern era. Do you think in retrospect, did the character have, in their minds, do you think there was a shelf life? Were you happy with the way it went? I guess it's the short way of asking.
Well, the only way it could have gotten better is if I would have won the world title. I mean, come on, man. Right. Eugene skyrocketed to the top, maybe a world. Yeah, Eugene skyrocketed to the top, maybe a worldwide name, got the action figure, got the t-shirt, in the ring with The Rock, in the ring with Hogan at Mania, pinned Vince McMahon. The gimmick character might have had a shelf life, but there's 2 things Shawn Michaels had told me. If the gimmick is good, you can always bring it back at some point and have a little run and pull it back. Doink the Clown could come back tomorrow and have a 6-month run and people would love him. The other thing Shawn told me is once you're over, you're always over.
Yeah. That art of getting over, and that really is the only rule, right? Get over.
Yeah. And it's not something you can teach. I mean, and it's hard to do, and not everybody has it. And I don't know, when I was Mr. Wrestling Nick Dinsmore in OVW, that people liked me, connected with me. When I was Eugene, people connected with me. I don't know what it is Like, I don't know. I know what I did to try to get it to happen, and it worked, but I don't know how to explain that to you or let you know where it comes from.
um, with being the Mr. Wrestling character and being this, this machine like catch can, bell to bell beast, and then flipping that completely on its head. Do you feel like if you hadn't had that experience prior, you would have been able to pull off the character as well as you did?
Yeah, it took all that experience because I mean I've been doing dark matches for a couple years, and I remember one time JR came up to me and he was like, "You're a great wrestler, you look good, but you've got the D Malenko problem. You don't have any facials." So I said, "Okay, well I'll just turn it up, turn it up to 11, and just do it over the top. Try to mockingly do it." And then there was a point at the towards before I got called up to TV where I'd been wrestling so long, I could, wrestle for an hour straight, not use the same hold twice, no sweat professional. And I didn't have to think about the wrestling. So I could just go out there and either work on the connection with the fans or try to do some comedy to make the guys in the back laugh. And I'm not saying that's what everybody should do, but I'm saying that's what I was doing because I wasn't getting bored, but the challenge of the match was easy. And then
Yeah.
when I became Eugene, I knew the wrestling I wanted to do. That was easy, but I also knew that I wanted to be different. This was Eugene debuts on TV as post Austin, post NWO, but all the guys still wanted to be cool, strong heels. I wanted to be a comedy, sympathetic babyface that sold and made comebacks. And I just tailored myself that way, which was completely different than everything else that was going on. And it worked.
It certainly did. The run you had, you bring up a great point. It's one of those characters that is so memorable yourself, like Santino, guys who just really nobody else could have played it. Not after it was done. It's like, okay, that's how do we not? That's the perfect guy for that. Being the journeyman and the vet that you were, did you go, oh man, I'm always going to be able to make a living now because I can take this character once this runs over and take it to every indie show in the country, in the world. They're going to want to see Eugene and meet Eugene.
I don't know that I thought that far ahead then.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, yeah, we talked about it. You're going to be able to be Eugene, until you're 70, because the matches can be easier than harder matches. But I don't
yeah.
know that I was really looking forward. I was just looking to the next TV, the next house show.
Right, right. And that when the WWE and the circus kind of picked up the tent poles, went down to Tampa, and OVW overnight was left without its WWE stars. And what we saw was the young guys in Rip's class, the non contract guys, now come together with the OVW veterans, yourself and Joey Mercury, um, and form this whole new. We really had to change the feeling of what was going on in that arena. We had to flip it, make them forget immediately. Do you remember that time period, and how important was it um, for you to be there for OVW and Danny Davis in their time of need?
So at that point, I'd been released from WWE and I was wrestling all around the world on the independents. But because OVW was something very close to my heart, myself, guys like Joey, we wanted to keep it going. So we would come back, and of course, it was going to be Rips guys. A, because they're trained and they know what they're doing, but B, they were hungry, and it was time for somebody to step up to the plate. And I was actually excited about it because that's when I kind of got to move from, I've trained guys, I've been in matches, I've been in main event matches, but now I was able to start of formulate storylines and then see if it worked when we put it out there.
I remember, there were some matches that I called during that time where we didn't have many people because it had nothing to do with what we were or were not doing. It was just, okay, the stars have gone. So it took, and that crowd's seen everything. You know that, Nick. Like, you got to set a puppy on fire and they wouldn't give a shit sometimes. So I remember guys like Rick Victor, APOC, and Von Lilas just having these killer matches, and it's kind of sparse, and perseverance, resiliency. OVW pulled through. You went on to continue to train a lot of guys who still like some real, like the Michael Hayeses of the world. Michael, not Freebird, but Michael Hayes with one leg. Like, he turned out to be a hell of a performer. So
Absolutely. At that time, like, I was training the beginners class. That's when anybody comes in, I would train them. And if they wanted to continue training, they'd go on to RIP. So I would give them the base foundation, how to have a match. We would generally work that beginner's class into having a show at the end of their semester, and then they would graduate and they could go on to RIP's class if they wanted to continue wrestling. And I think, I mean, the match I had with Mike Hayes in the Davis Arena is probably one of my favorite matches in the Davis Arena, because it was sold out. It was all for him, but I wasn't a heel. And it was I felt like it's a near masterpiece, because we did a time limit draw, and then it was just, if you haven't seen it, go find it. But it's one of my favorite matches.
It's out there. Yeah, it was absolutely great. I remember watching it after the time, because I heard about this one-legged wrestler, and I was like, oh, I got to see this, man. This guy, representing my community. So I had to check it out.
It used to be the test of being a 5-star top-notch performer was the time limit draw, was the Broadway. Now, Flair used to do it in 60 minutes, and I didn't necessarily know if either me or Mike could go 60 minutes at that time, but a 10-minute time limit draw is the same idea. And just being able to work that match, it was, and the crowd being there for everything. And then me not necessarily being a heel, but being a stiff, instructor, coach, but it was fun.
Yeah. And it got those guys ready for what was to come. With your first run up in WWE, was there a reoccurring adversity that was kind of either you found yourself having to endure, or you kept running into? Was there something like you look back, and not even just WWE, but maybe all the way up to that, like that early part and first big success part of your career?
Well, I mean, maybe mentally getting over the hump of thinking I probably don't have a chance to make it to the roster, to actually thinking I can make it to the roster, to making it to the roster was probably the biggest hump. But then you got to think, once I made it on TV, once I got in the locker room, I wasn't a new guy. All the guys in the locker room had been in Louisville for 2 years, and I've been training them. So Randy's there, Cena's there, I mean, Batista's there, and it's like, I'm not going to say that they haze people, but I wasn't ribbed or poked fun at for being the new guy. All of a sudden, people are coming to me on my first day asking me questions, what they should do. So it's like, and then I was so well written for, there was no hump to overcome, because all of a sudden I'm in a main event with Hunter. What I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, there might have been some disagreements on the art of professional wrestling, what we should do, but when it came down to it, I mean, I knew I was a team player, and I was following the leader.
Yeah, that's at the end of the day, philosophically, it doesn't matter whether you agree or not. You got to go with who's signing the checks.
That's right.
What kind of wrestling do you love the most, when you to watch, to be a part of, if you had your choice?
Well, I mean, I love, if they call it catch as catch can wrestling or chain wrestling. Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask, the series they had, are probably my favorite matches. But then I also love Memphis. I also love comedy. I also love gimmicks. I also love characters, if it makes sense. I think Lawler is one of the greatest performers of all time. And he was a babyface that set people on fire and did the illegal pile driver, and they loved him. It was not, I wouldn't say that's so reality based, but the people bought into it and the people enjoyed it. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to hook them, get them to suspend that disbelief and believe in what we're doing.
Was there? I forgot to ask you. Was there ever I know a period of time. Did you had gone and done some work at WCW before developmental? Had you not? Was there ever interest early on?
So I worked for USWA, the Memphis-based promotion, like the last 6 or 8 weeks that they were in existence. I went to the first Brian Pillman Memorial Show where I met Terry Taylor. He was maybe creative or in the office or something with WCW. So soon after that, he called me into WCW. I think I did 2 Nitros, 3 Thunders, and maybe 7 or 8 Saturday nights. In that time period, that was not mid '98 maybe to January '99. In that time period, Terry Taylor had gotten fired. So WCW was so disorganized that I was still on the booking sheets, but nobody was calling me and letting me know. Terry
Wow.
Taylor gets rehired by WWE. December of '99, I get developmental contract with WWE. But I always thought to myself, if somebody would have let me know, I could have been a part of that, the New Blood Rising angle, all the way into the Invasion angle in WWE.
Wow.
I could have been, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have made it.
Yeah.
But you got to think, when they start giving the younger guys the push, because I found this out later because guys like Elix Skipper and Lash LaRue that I would see on the independents later, like, what happened to you? Where'd you go? You were still booked. And I was like, I had no idea.
Nobody called me. Yeah.
Yeah.
How different would your career possibly have been? Um, yeah, at that point, I always found that interesting, those timelines, how they kind of weave in and out, and how we look at those moments in our lives and go, man, how crazy would that have been? How different would that have been?
Mm-hmm.
With the WWE run, at what point, or was there a point where you started to see that maybe that Eugene wasn't getting the amount of airtime? Do you remember? You have any memory of that period of what happened?
Well, I knew that as high as you can take any character, you might need some time to cool them off. Cornette would always say, "How can I miss you if you don't go away?" And then they could turn around and write somebody right back into a top spot if they wanted to. So, I mean, I had the angle all the way till the SummerSlam match with Hunter in Toronto, and that's when the crowd turned on Eugene. The Toronto crowd turned on Eugene. So the next night, I think was still in Toronto or maybe in Canada, but me and Regal weren't on it. And then after that, then we started the tag team run that led us to the tag titles.
Yeah.
So we're still in a top spot. And then I got injured. I tore my patella tendon. When I came back, Regal was on SmackDown. I all of a sudden had no partner. They put me with Christy Hemme for a while. And I mean, she was great and it was fun, but she and I didn't have the magic that Regal and I had.
I mean, that was just the perfect odd couple. It's just incredible uh, how that worked, and I'm sure you had a feeling early on like this is going to be good. Were you super stoked when you found out you were going to
Well,
be with Regal?
I was excited because I was a fan of his. I was excited because Rip Rogers, who's another one that trained me, and Regal are good friends, and they used to live together in Germany. And it was
Yep.
Rip that told Regal what to write to Bill Watts to make it to WCW. So I was just
Wow.
excited because plus I was a fan of Catch as Catch Can wrestling, and Regal was one of the best. I would watch Lord Steven Regal on Saturday nights all the time. And all of a sudden I'm partnered with him. I got to ride with him. You know what I mean? I got to go to his house. I marked out a little bit. But then when the stuff on TV started to get over, then I'm like, oh, this has got legs.
His lordship, what did he teach you as far as his character work, his comedy work is just it's as good as any improv artist I've ever seen.
I don't know that he necessarily said do this and teach me, but just watching him comedy. And then some of it was me trying to crack him. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we did one backstage thing where Bischoff and Regal come forward to the camera and they're talking, and Eugene's in the back playing. And whatever they were talking about it was when I first started, and I think Bischoff's trying to get Regal to screw Eugene, and I found a fire extinguisher back there. So all of a sudden, I just hit it off, and the thing goes plums up everywhere. And both of them turn around, and then they turn back around, and they started laughing. And Vince, I think, almost used that take, but then he thought whatever they were talking about needed to be serious, and we couldn't go to
Right.
comedy after that. But I
Right.
mean, Regal taught me more about being a worldly gentleman, and a lot about being a man, and a lot about wrestling, but a lot of the other stuff that I would learn in the car and just watching him and just being out with him, and I don't know,
Yeah,
a
he
mentor and
could
a friend.
a mentor and a friend. That's and how Man, like really, if you look back on it, probably really lucky to have that, because a lot of guys, stuck in the car with guys at the same experience level. You're all kind of smelling each other's
Mhm.
farts and don't know what's up and or
Yep.
down. So yeah, that how fortunate. You spent a period of time as a coach at the Performance Center, or was it FCW? It was a Performance Center, correct?
So I got hired in 2013, I think, 2014,
Okay.
when it was FCW, but it was right before they moved to Orlando. So I only coached in Orlando, but I started my hiring process in Tampa.
How was that experience for you? Just
Man, it was awesome. I say this all the time. If anybody goes there and doesn't become a star, it can't be WWE's fault, because they've got so many resources. They've got so many people with knowledge. They've got an entire library. You can pick whatever you want. It's at the tip of your toes, tip of your fingers. And I mean, you're living in Florida. You're getting paid to wrestle. So, I mean, it was a great experience. It made me a better coach. It made me understand the business more, you know.
There's a difference, I'm sure, between, and I'd seen it just from being Dusty's assistant in FCW to, being down in OVW. There's a big difference between being kind of like office, at OVW, and then like, oh shit, I'm really part of the office here at WWE. What were any of the hurdles you had encountered, maybe that you didn't expect, or that you did and they were still tough?
Well, I was shown the job at FCW. And then, just like you said, FCW and OVW were independent wrestling companies that contracted with WWE to train their talent. The Performance Center is a WWE product, and WWE has a degree of excellence with everything they have across the board. When Triple H was going from just being on-air talent to being in the office, Vince says, go around to every department, spend 2 weeks there and report back to me. So he goes to accounting, he goes to merchandise, he goes to oversee whatever all the departments are. He comes back and he goes, man, that developmental's messed up. He goes, Vince goes, all right, that's your department. So
Wow.
it was Triple H then that went to the New York Giants training center and modeled the Performance Center after what they had. It's got a huge weight room. When I was there, it had a huge weight room, 5 rings, all kind, the whole upstairs locker room, and anything you could want if you were a talent. The hurdle was probably understanding being around an independent company and now being in a publicly traded company.
Yeah. You got to have those reports in on time. You got to have constant communication. I don't think it really is a thankless job, and it's nonstop 24/7 on that phone's got to be on. And anybody who's
that's the I expected. But you've been around me. I'm one to maybe crack a joke every now and then. And
right.
in a publicly traded company with men and women in the office, I got to keep my jokes at a G level. You know what I mean?
Right. It doesn't help too that Rip Rogers took part in our formative years, But yeah,
I could never repeat some of the things that Rip said in training, in a WWE training. No way.
no. But at least he was fair. Everybody was, a lazy son of a bitch, and until you weren't, and then you still were, but you weren't, right? Like,
so here's the story, right?
Please.
The first time I got called into WCW, I went to Rip and I was like, Rip, what am I gonna do? And up until then, Rip called me fat, lazy son of a FOB and whatever. And all of a sudden he goes, well, you're better than anybody on that show, so just do your drop kicks. And all of a sudden he gave me like a compliment, and I didn't know how to take it. I was like, I didn't think I was any good,
Right.
And then he justified me. So all of a sudden then I'm like, well, maybe I am good.
Right. What a moment. Yeah,
Yep.
I thought he hated me at first.
Yeah.
And then I realized, like, him saying nothing to me meant I did a good job. And I'll never forget when I left to move down to FCW after I got the call. I leave, I say, hey, bye everybody, bye, and I leave, and I hear it was just Rip's practice is going on, and I hear it was after a Derby City Wrestling show, TV taping or whatever, and I hear that side Davis Arena door shut by the ramp, shut behind me, and then I hear Rip go, well, he's gone. 10 bell salute. Give me the 10 bells, and I about died. Yeah, that was good stuff. that corporate environment and kind of dealing with the madness that like when I say madness, it's like you know, on Monday, no clotheslines. Nobody's throwing clotheslines. You're not allowed. That's the edict. And then 7 days later, it's why isn't anybody throwing clotheslines? Like, how did you do with managing that kind of Jekyll Hyde fickleness of the whole thing?
Well, that really wasn't an issue because I was given direction and I ran with it. I was given the class that even if somebody had experience, they would come into my class first. So we're doing very simple: get in the ring, get out of the ring, climb to the top rope, run the ropes, take a bump. Very easy stuff. Doing some rolls. There were even some guys that were very highly trained. They might have been on NXT TV that would ask to come back to my class. I think because it was a little bit easier, but because they just wanted to work on the basics, doing rolls and just the basic stuff. The I kind of ran into a problem because the talent would come to me and go, the office isn't being fair to us. So I would say, go to HR. And they would say, well, we can't because the last kid that went to HR, they just told the boss. So I'm like, man, I don't know what to say. So I was, and this is probably one of the reasons they got released, is I was friends with the talent, although I didn't hang out with them. And I mean, I was friends with everybody, but everybody else, all the other coaches were a coach-student relationship where I like talking to them, and I'd met a lot of these guys on independence already, so
Right.
I've had matches against some of them. So it's like, I can't be an asshole to them. I can be rough on them, but I can't be an asshole to them. But
Yeah. I struggled with that as well, and I got pulled up and chewed out for riding in the car with certain guys. I didn't know though. I had no experience with it. I had no clue.
yeah,
And that was weird for me. It was like uh but I wish I had a little more maturity to see it just as it was at that point. But once the coaching job uh ended with WWE, is that something you would return to? Is that something that still would interest you? Should that be presented?
I mean, if it was offered, I'm sure that I would take it. I still enjoy training. It's something I've always enjoyed. I would have to sit back and think if I want to dip my toe back into that corporate lifestyle. But I would hope
Yeah.
that now that it's maybe owned by a different owner, maybe things are a little different. I don't know. But I feel like the last time it was painted a certain way, but underneath it wasn't bad. And I don't want to say this, and then people think I have sour grapes because I do not. But it might not have been exactly what I was painted. But I figure that's probably any job. They're going to say, "Hey, this is it," and "Oh yeah, can you do this? Oh yeah, you can't do that. Oh yeah, can you do this on the side?" So, but I mean, it was a great experience. I mean, I would love to be back in the fold. You know.
Yeah. It's crazy, right? Because it does sometimes become like just the job, but then you got to pinch yourself and go, well, wait a minute. Like this is it. This is what I kind of signed up for. Did do you these days where do you want to see um yourself landing as far as your legacy goes and the future for Nick Dinsmore?
Let's put a pin in now. Let's rewind just a little bit. I don't know if I'd
Sure,
want to be a
please.
coach. I don't know if I'd want to be a coach, Timmy
Okay.
Baltimore, but I might like to have one of those Legends contracts. I think, like the legend Kelly was just signed to a Legends contract, and she deserves it. I mean, probably more than any diva that's ever gotten in the ring. Has she gotten in the ring? So I think, maybe one day they would pity me and give me a little bit of a Legends contract, but until that day, I'm just going to keep plugging on.
There we go. So hint. Uh, yeah, there's no reason though. I mean, like, there's so many guys that you look at. I know it's a lot of it is politics, but um, no doubt Eugene is somebody that belongs in the Hall of Fame for that incredible run and for being such a memorable character. Are you surprised or do you still like get blown away when people come? Do people still come up and go, "Oh Christ, Eugene," in
Occasionally,
public?
occasionally
Yeah,
people will still recognize me, but I mean, you gotta think I'm still wrestling on the indies every weekend. So now it's
yeah,
it's it's families coming up and the kids looking at me kind of weird, and the dad's going, Daddy used to watch him. Daddy grew up watching this guy. He's the good, and the kid gets the picture, not knowing who I am. Or maybe they saw me on YouTube or on whatever the heck it's on now, Netflix, Peacock, Network, whatever it's on, and they say, "Oh yeah, I saw you do this," and then they know who I am. So the character's still out there. I mean, it'd be nice if WWE put out another action figure or two, but what the heck? We can talk about that later. But the legacy is there, and I don't know. Short of winning the world title, I don't know what I could do, because after I left as a coach at the Performance Center, I moved to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I started my own wrestling company, which I ran for 7 years. So I mean,
Okay, tell me about that.
um, when I left there, I didn't know. I was with my now ex-wife, but wife Stephanie, and
I remember
she's from
Stephanie.
she's from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So we moved back there, and I was like, I'm gonna open a wrestling school. And I was like, there's probably some independent wrestling here. And she was like, I don't think there is. And when I got there, there wasn't. And it was a surprise, because I'd wrestled all over the country, all around the world. And there's some small independent company, some guy with a ring in almost every city. But the closest to Sioux Falls was Omaha, which was 3 hours away. So I went down to Omaha, and I saw their talent, and I told them what I was going to do. And a handful of them came back up with me, and I started training. I got 2 students. I ran my first show. The 2 students debuted on the second show, and I progressively got more students and more students. And we built a little territory. We ran for 7 years, and it was a successful territory. I think the one place that I might have made a mistake is Sioux Falls only had like 180,000 people in the city. The state
Okay.
had maybe 800,000 people or something. It didn't have a high population. So, I mean, I was drawing people, but I didn't have a large pool to draw from. If I would have started a wrestling company in Phoenix or Houston or Tampa or somewhere with a bigger population, we might have generated more money. But again, it was a great period of my life. It was a different period. I learned a lot, and it was just it was fun, man. And I'm not saying I'm not going to do that again somewhere, but as of right now, I'm just enjoying the beach in Florida.
Yeah, I was going to say the Florida scene, it's strange, right? I mean, like I said, I was down there on the beach for 10 years, and the parts that I've seen, it's so I'd love to get your take on it, because it boggles my mind, because you have so much talent there that has been released from WWE, or that are legends that have come down there, but it seems like nobody gets on the same page to get it together for something to be, like tangible, that has some buzz and some traction. What do you think that is?
I don't know. What you're talking about is getting something that's pretty big, and I don't know that anybody wants to invest enough time and heart and money into something like that. There's plenty of guys that have training centers or have some shows that run
Sure.
around, and there's a bunch of those, and all the shows do well. So I mean, I think there's enough population here that many companies can thrive, and a lot of them are. But I mean, what are you going to do? Compete with WWE? Compete with AEW? I don't know. It's just it seems like it's a retirement land, and there's a lot of indie companies.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, I didn't see um anything that was remotely sort of territorial esque. It's just, it was this guy has a show over here in this community center, and some of them have great talent, and others you go, really, and but that's everywhere. Maybe the only thing is, it maybe because there's way more to do than sit inside an auditorium and watch wrestling
Yeah.
down there.
Well, these guys are drawing. I mean, the micro wrestlers came in and drew 1,500 people. And they come here
Right?
once a
They're
year.
doing great
Yeah. So
everywhere.
I think we are comparing today to the territorial model that included TV. And
Mhm.
TV, pretty much for independent companies, is out. You're going to advertise and show your product online. So then you talk about clicks and views and stuff like that. And if these guys are sustaining, if they're making money, then I think they're doing it right.
I was just curious about your take on it. I know, like, Shimmer did really well down there for a while, and they ran out of Ebor. I was curious if you and the old man, if you and Danny had ever had discussions about dipping toes back in the water.
I can neither confirm nor deny that we've had that discussion at least once.
Well, well, if you're if you need somebody to call the arm drags, please, my number is the same. Um,
Well, it would
When
take
you
somebody good like it would take somebody good like you to build a type product you're talking about, man. We need somebody strong on the microphone to describe what's going on to get our point over, man. Absolutely.
Thanks, man. Thanks, man. Yeah, just narrate the stories you guys are telling in the ring, man.
Hmm.
Um, Guys don't get that in commentary. They try to get themselves over. It's like
Yeah.
if you get yourself over by getting them over in your own way, your own
Hmm.
identifiable way. But what do you do? But I never would have known that. I never would have learned that. I'd have been just some indie jabroni talking about whatever on a microphone had I not gone to OVW. Had I not had you, telling me what's what, Rip and Danny and it's so I'm incredibly lucky. I think about that. I think about a lot of times. Number one, I think about Danny Davis and Rip, and I go, they're not making any more of them. There'll be a day when we don't have them,
Yeah.
and but then I'm like invigorated because I go, well, Nick, guys like Nick is that's somebody who, if anybody can take the reins and carry that on, like so there is still hope, but that modern mentality of forget the vets, the guys that drew money, where because they shot at street signs and were toxic, we're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, is the most asinine uh mentality of young guys that I've seen in recent memory. Do you encounter that?
Not so much. I mean, what'll happen is I'll come in, I'll do a seminar and a show, and I'll talk about my philosophy on the way wrestling should be or what it used to be. But I realize that guys got to make it their own, and it's very different now. But then if we talk about these are some things that maybe you shouldn't do, and then people go out there and have the exact same match that they had the night before. So it's like I'm passing on the knowledge, but it's difficult. It might be easy to understand it. It's difficult to apply it. Unless you got somebody in the ring with you that can lead you by the hand, then it's very difficult for the light bulb to come on. You might be able to recognize it, might be able to understand it, but not until you feel it can you really get it. And I don't know that guys have that experience.
What advice would you give to the young guys out there right now?
Burn your boots, get out of the business. Jesus.
Smart.
No, I mean, I think guys, they have a good match, they have a good reaction, and they think, wow, we did it right. And the old timers are not saying you did it wrong. We're saying you could have done it a little bit bigger, a little bit better, a little bit longer. You could have drawn a little bit more money. You could have broken it into 2, 3 matches. You know what I mean? You could have gotten more out of this because it was good. And I mean, I don't know. It might be a forgotten art. Maybe it comes back around. I don't know where the state of the business is. It's definitely it's always I don't know progressing, but it's always going. It's always cyclical. Something will come back around.
Yeah, it's the athleticism is better and crazier than ever, but it's almost like technology. It's like the further advanced we get, the dumber we get. That storytelling, less isn't more, but you can get more out of less, and
Yeah.
that mentality is, man. I consider myself fortunate to have an idea of what it looks like, and I'm not in there, but as much of an idea as I can have, and to have been gone to a place like OVW at that time. And I don't know if a place like that will ever exist again in that way. Nick, what would you say overarching in your whole um your life, career, childhood into adulthood, professional, personal life? What has been the overarching obstacle that you have had to um, face and try to overcome?
Well, I'm sure there's been many, but I mean the biggest one, what ruined my first run was failing a drug test and getting fired. So it was, I tore up my knee, had a patella repair, prescribed, painkillers, trying to get back as quick as I could. When I got back, WWE put me in the angle with Kurt Angle. So at a patella repair at that time, the therapy was supposed to be 9 months before you get cleared. I was cleared at 6 months, and I was nowhere ready to be in the ring with Kurt Angle. So I mean, I took more pain pills and ended up passing out in my underwear in a hotel in Manchester, right?
Yeah,
Manchester, England, and
yeah.
you know, shortly after that, they sent me to the rehab. I came
What?
back. The WWE doctor says, I said, my knee still hurts. They said, well, go back to taking the pain pills, but don't take the somas. And I think the somas are what kill all the boys.
Yeah, the
So,
somas
so
are. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So since then, I've never taken somas again. But this was 2007, I guess. I started taking the pain pills again, and then the WWE. I had a. So back then, if you had a prescription for a pain pill, you could take it.
Right.
I saw a doctor. I got a prescription for hydrocodone, which is one type of pain pill. I'd seen another doctor. I got a prescription for Percocet, one prescription, right? I gave the WWE the doctor that prescribed me the hydrocodone. So then I'd taken one Percocet, and that's when I took the drug test, and they were like, okay, they want to know where'd you get it from, what doctor. I went to find out, and the doctor had committed suicide.
Oh,
So
shit in the hat.
Jeremy Lehman, Jack's Dane, it was his
Yeah,
doctor from Knoxville or somewhere.
I remember this story, Nick. I
Doctor
remember you.
Doctor
So you were
Pancake.
screwed.
Doctor
Yeah.
Pancake. Yeah. So I had no. I couldn't validate it. So that's when I got
Oh,
released. So then it was an overcoming obstacle for the pain pills, which I ended up getting off of them, but a lot of it was the shame after that. That I had to overcome because I didn't know what people thought or where my career would go. I mean, over time that dissipates, but still, I could have had a longer run. I could have had a better run if maybe I would have been able to sort that out or not been on the pain pills. But you know, I wasn't a guy doing street drugs, smoking crack, and doing heroin, but I was in pain, taking pain pills, and attempted to do within the rules. I mean, I'm not
yeah.
gonna lie. The guys that were taking them were all overtaking them,
Right.
overindulging. But
Yeah.
until the education started to come along about the opiates, this was before the big opiate push that people are starting to realize that these are very dangerous things. Until that education came along, nobody. I mean, we knew, but we didn't know what we know now.
Right. And
So
you could. There was the doctor shopping and the pill mill. I mean, it was me. I could. So I've been there, brother, and yeah. So that was you'd say the knocked you on your ass ordeal.
so then I finally get rehired in '09. They saw me in May. At some point, they start me on the road, and I wasn't in the best shape that I probably could have been in, but I didn't think Eugene was a body guy.
Right.
And then the next thing I know, Johnny Ace said, we're not selling old fat Eugene. And then I'm in a match with the Miz with the Raw contract on a pole in Canada.
I
And I
remember.
knew right then and there because I was losing. I said, I'm getting fired. I knew it right away, and I was fired the next Friday.
Incredible. Like when
Right?
they fired Conway on the air. If you
Yeah,
remember that, Vince fired him.
yeah.
What a weird
And then
culture. Like,
even when I was a coach, I don't know. I didn't do anything to get fired. They told me I was not up to WWE standards, and
wait,
I'm
slow
like,
down. What do
what?
you mean? What does that mean?
I, that's all they said. So it was kind of like creatives got nothing for you. You know what I mean? Because
But
I knew I was as good a coach as any coach out there. Everybody had their strengths, but I was as good a coach as any coach out there. And I think it might have been more of a political division between the coaches at that time. There might have
mm,
been sides that I was either ignorant to or didn't want to partake in. So I was trying to be friends with everybody, and I might have been a casualty of that. I don't know. But to have
yeah,
a to sell your home, to leave. I had a small job in the Louisville area, to leave all that and relocate with my family to Orlando, and then all of a sudden get released. It's like, what do you do now? I mean, I gave up. I built something in Louisville because I was still coaching at OVW at the time. So it was just kind of like a kick in the nuts to come home and tell your wife, oh yeah, I got fired today. Why? Because they said I wasn't up to WWE standards.
it's crazy. And
But
yeah, no further questions either. Like no answers.
before I was hired, I was told I was on a short list to be a coach, a short list of one. I was the guy they wanted, the only one they wanted. And now all of a sudden, a year and a half later, I'm not up to their standard, really. And then I see some of the coaches they hire after that, and I'm like, really?
See, yeah, you got. There were some changes on.
I don't
They
know. I never like to play the political games. I never like to take sides. I never like to
Yeah.
gossip behind people's back. And it's just, I don't know. That's the one thing. When we talked about the corporate lifestyle, and it's also the other part of the corporate lifestyle that comes along with it, stuff like that. I'm just there I'm there for the art. I'm there to train guys and see guys succeed and see them go on. And I'm not there to talk about some other guy that might be making more than me or somebody else likes, or who cares. We're all in the same. We're all on the same team, doing the same thing, going the same direction.
Right. Yeah, that pettiness and that weird like everybody gets in the car and talks a little shit sometimes, right? But like that burial, smile in your face, Tennessee hug to your, yeah, like and just for people at home, we're doing the knife going.
Yeah, not this one. It's a knife in the back. The only thing,
yeah.
I can really think, is that I was a threat to somebody for something.
What I've learned in life and in wrestling is most people, even if you're telling them something they don't want to hear, they're not going to like, they may get pissed off. But if you tell them and you're honest and straight up, eventually, usually they'll go, well, shit, at least he told me. Mm-hmm. But that mystery, the haze, the getting over, it's the culture and it'll never change. I don't know how it could. What would you say, Nick, to anybody out there who is struggling with the physical pain, and not just wrestlers, but the opiate epidemic, recovery and addiction. It's a beast, and it doesn't care what you look like, where you come from. It can get anybody, grandma to anybody. So what would you say to anybody who's struggling with that and it's affecting their livelihood or their family? What advice would you give?
Well, I hate addiction, but like you just said, addiction doesn't discriminate, so that's kind of a good thing. Yeah. No, I mean, for the physical pain, I mean, the more I'm active, the more I walk, bike, work out, stretch, the better my body feels. I came to a point after my surgeries had healed, but I was still addicted to opiates, that the tough part was coming off of it and not going through withdrawal or trying to get withdrawal down. So you're trying to minimize the amount of pain pills. I'd gotten off it using Suboxone with a doctor. So if someone is struggling with that, if you can find a doctor that can teach you and monitor you and prescribe you Suboxone, that might be one way. 2015, I had another shoulder surgery. They put me back on the pain pills. And after that, I started taking the kratom to come off of it. And some people don't like the kratom. Some people might think that's another mood-altering substance. I don't necessarily think it is, because it doesn't get me messed up. It just makes any withdrawal that I might be feeling, subside.
It helps with the sickness. It does. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. Like, I never got like vomit sick, but the feeling, I always told people, it felt like if you've ever thought you're going to drown in that panic, or got shocked by a socket, and that shock, it was like getting shocked and panicked and having explosive diarrhea and sweating all at the same time for 10 days.
Yes.
And it was just, it's fucking miserable. So, but the kratom is allegedly, it's a related to the coffee plant in Southeast Asia. It's an herb. They've been, Eastern medicine has been using it for a while. And I mean, I get it at they used to call them head shops, smoke shops, whatever you want to call them now. But it's, I wouldn't necessarily tell anybody to take that if you're not needing to come off opiates, because it is addictive, like cigarettes. But I don't know. I think for me, it's better than, trying to manage opiates every day when my body hurts, but it might not hurt to the point that I need opiates,
Right. And that's the tough part to judge. You know what I mean? I go through the same thing. I got metal from my ass to my skull. And it's like, you really start to wonder how much of this is in my head, how much of this, and if you take too much for too long, it intensifies things. And you gotta come down. But you're right, it's like what people out there wondering like why do people still use, or why are they switching, don't understand why people would keep using and why it would get out of hand like that. It's that sickness is so real and so intense. Your teeth itch and your hair hurts, and it's like you can't take 10 days off of life or a but so, so it's very difficult, and I feel like it's like many things in life, people are above it until it happens to them or somebody they love, and then you get a crash course on it real quick.
It becomes difficult. It becomes difficult because the opiates change your brain chemistry, and it makes you think that the opiates are an essential need, like air and water and food, and you have to have this. And if someone's not going to give you air, water, or food, you're going to do pretty much whatever you have to get that. And it becomes in that line. And that's why some people that don't have it can't understand, like, why are these people sitting at a gas station at 2 o'clock in the morning waiting for somebody to come? Why are they doing bad things? Not that I ever did bad things to get it, but it was just I wasted a lot of time and money when
Sure.
looking back now that I probably couldn't have, but I didn't have the
Yeah.
education, and at the time, again, this was in the 90s to 2000s, that was still in the culture of professional wrestling. And I think WWE has done a great job in kind of getting that out of the culture.
Right. Right. I mean, I haven't seen or heard somas in forever, and that, like that those are the ones that people would be, you'd catch them
Well,
passed out.
I was in an indie locker room recently, and one of the old timers comes up to me, goes, I got all kinds of gimmicks for you. I got cholesterol medicine, I got blood pressure medicine, I got Viagra, Cialis. It's a different locker room now.
It's different day. Yeah, no shit. Oh my god. Nick, what do you have coming up here in the future? I know you got the YouTube channel that's doing really well. It's awesome. It's gives a very candid, no holds barred look into um what some of the juicier things that you've been through, and it does so with your cadence and personality, and what makes you so likable and an attractive human being to the masses. So how did that come about? What's the plan? Like, do you see it keep going? Are you enjoying it?
Oh, absolutely. Eugene Behind the Scenes YouTube channel is the new thing that we're pushing. I signed a multi-year contract with the Von Lila Studios. Von Lilas is one of the best internet YouTube producers, editors, leaders, managers that we have going. And he and I have been talking for a while. I helped train Von Lilas. Like you said, he was in OVW. He assists Rip Rogers on his podcast, YouTube show. But I've been wanting to write a book, and I've been writing stuff. You know what I mean? I don't know that I'm a book writer, but I've been writing. Looking back, it's almost like journaling each day or show or big event. And then Von Lila's like, why don't we get these out on YouTube? So we started making the videos, and we started pushing them, and we're building. We got, I don't know how many subscribers we got now, but it's continually building. And I want to talk about my career that people saw on TV, but then maybe what was going on behind the scenes that they might not know of at that time, or relevant topics, or what I think about certain people or certain events in wrestling, and just just try to give as they say now, give the content that the fans want to see.
Yeah, and you do. It's some really uh cool stuff that um even stories I haven't heard or I haven't heard in a long time. And it seems like that's kind of what people want. They want to everybody wants to put on Superman's cape for a day, but everybody kind of wants to peer behind the curtain. And
Yep.
I still think you should do the book. Um I still think you should. I'm going to send you something. We'll talk about that. But I still think you should do the book. I
I
think
got
that,
I got a lot of stuff written. I started writing it, like when I was a kid. But as I enjoyed wrestling, as I wrestled, up until like we're currently on the SummerSlam match with Hunter. That's what I've written up to.
beautiful.
But then like I want to keep writing, but 'cause I can't. I don't feel like I can put out the first stuff. People want to hear about the WWE stuff. So I'm trying to, and I've got a lot of stuff written, because sometimes I'll just write more
Yeah.
just relaxing just to write. And then sometimes I really want to tell a story, but it's just a slow process because I don't necessarily sit down and write all the time. The inspiration doesn't hit all the time. And when I got the beach right down the street, it's kind of tough to sit in here and write.
Yeah, no doubt. The thing is, see it's like a match, right? You in your book, you gotta you hook them at first, and then the TRIPLEH, all the stuff that they want to hear. They gotta go through the story, which all of a sudden they realize, oh, I'm enjoying this too. It's doable, man. I think you have a hell of a story, and definitely I think you should get it in print. And I think you should cut me in on it. And no, I think I thank you for coming on here and telling your story. You've always been so genuine and cool and helpful to little old Timmy, but to countless other people in helping their hopes, dreams, and at the end of the day, F your dreams, because this is a business, and helping them learn how to be successful in this business. So
well, I mean, I don't know that I could teach somebody how to be successful, but if you have a dream that you want to pursue, and I can see that, those were the guys that I helped, and I could see you had a dream you wanted to pursue. So you were given this much heart and energy, and I wanted to assist you however I could, because you had the ability, you had the talent, and just because everybody doesn't make it to the main event, that doesn't mean that you've had a lackluster or career that is not successful. If you had the dream and you got in the business, I just wanted to get in the business. I just wanted to have one match. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I just wanted to be around pro wrestling, and then I had one hell of a ride. So it's just it's the journey. It's not the destination.
You can't beat that. We're gonna like George Costanza go out on that high note. Any socials? Behind the Scenes with Eugene is the name of the channel, correct?
That's the YouTube channel. I got my Twitter, which is at UGENE Dinsmore, or X, whatever you call it. I hate the name X because I'm not going to X somebody. Somebody's not going to X me. I like Twitter, and then I got the Instagram, Nick Dinsmore, but I don't do a whole lot on Instagram, but I got one.
Okay. And that's the same at UGEN.
No, the Instagram is just Nick Dinsmore. It's just Nick Dinsmore.
At Nick Dinsmore. Okay.
The Twitter is at Eugene Dinsmore.
Okay, and we'll pop those up here. Nick, thank you so much for being on LiMPiN AiNT. And you're the man. History's going to treat you well, brother. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Timmy. Thanks for having me.
The opiate epidemic, recovery and addiction. It's a beast, and it doesn't care what you look like, where you come from. It can get anybody, grandma to anybody.
Well, I hate addiction, but like you just said, addiction doesn't discriminate, so that's kind of a good thing.